For this video, we're going to be discussing segments, midpoints, and bisectors. So let's start by revisiting what a segment is. A segment is just part of a line that exists between 2 points. So here I have the line AB, and you notice we name it with AB and the line above it has 2 arrows. That means that we're talking about a line. The segment AB is the part of the line that just exists between points A and B. Notice that it's named the same, but instead of having double arrows on the name, it just has a line segment on top. So that's all a segment is. Segment addition is when we add the lengths of 2 or more segments together. So if we look here, I have line segment AC, and AC is made up of 2 smaller segments, AB and BC. So if I take a look at this, I know that AB is 11, and BC is 8. And AC, this whole segment, is made up of AB and then BC. So the length of AC is AB plus BC, which in this case is 19. 11 plus 8. So that's how segment addition works. It's pretty basic. So let's look at it at an example. Example 1 here says, in the picture below, the length of AC, this whole thing, is 18 units, and it says find the value of x. So we're trying to find the value of x, we need to set up an equation. We know that this entire length, AC, is 18. I know AB is 12, and BC is 3x. So based on what we just learned about segment addition, I can set up this equation. 12 plus 3x, that's AB plus BC. That's the same thing as this entire length AC, which is 18. So 12 plus 3x is 18. So now I just have a pretty simple linear equation to solve. Subtract 12 on both sides, and I get 3x equals 6. Divide both sides by 3, and I get x equals 2. If we plug this back in, we'd see 3 times 2 is 6. 12 plus 6 is 18. So that's how we would solve a problem like this one. The midpoint of a segment is the middle of the segment. It literally just marks the middle of the segment. And it divides our segment into 2 equal pieces. So if I look here, if point M is the midpoint of segment DE, then DM and ME are both exactly the same. They're 7, and the whole thing is 14. So a midpoint just cuts a line segment in half. All right, so using that, we can do another example. Here's example 2. In the picture below, we know that H is the midpoint of FG. And it says find the length of FH. I need to find this entire length here, from F to H. But that's represented as 3x plus 8. So in order to find the length of FH, I got to find out what x is first. Okay, well, how do we do that? Well, we know that FH and HG are exactly the same. And the way we note that in geometry is we put a hash mark on each one of them. That shows that they are the same. And if they're the same, then they're equal. So I can set up an equation. I know that 3x plus 8 equals 5x minus 16. So once again, I've got a linear equation to solve. So to do that, I am going to subtract 3x on both sides. And if I subtract 3x here and subtract 3x here, 5x minus 3x is 2x. Then I'm going to add 16 on both sides. 8 plus 16 is 24. Then I divide by 2. 24 divided by 2 is 12. So I know x equals 12. But the important thing here is we're not being asked to find x, we're being asked to find the length of FH. So to find the length of FH, I've got to take my x, 12, and plug it back into my equation, 3x plus 8. So instead of x, I plug in 12. So I've got 3 times 12 plus 8. 3 times 12 is 36. 36 plus 8 is 44. So the answer is 44. FH is 44, which means HG is also 44, which means FG, this whole thing, would be 88. All right, and next we're going to talk about a bisector. So a bisector is just a line that passes through the midpoint of a segment. So here's AB, and point C is the midpoint. And if point C is the midpoint, and DE goes through that point, then DE is the bisector of AB. So that's all a bisector is. It's a line that goes through the midpoint of another segment. So example 3 says, in the picture below, HK is the bisector of FG. Find the length of FG. All right, so we got to look at what we've got here. I'm trying to find the length of FG, meaning I want to know what is this whole length between these 2 points. And I know that HK is the bisector, meaning FH and HG are equal. They're exactly the same. So I know these 2 parts are the same. I know this one is 5x and this one is 8x minus 15. All right, so in order to find this whole length FG, the first thing I need to know is what's x? So once again, I can set up an equation. I know 5x equals 8x minus 15. So I'm going to solve this equation. Okay, if I subtract 8x on both sides, then 5 minus 8 is negative 3. So I know negative 3x equals negative 15. Divide by negative 3 on both sides, and you get x equals 5. All right, so now I need to use that to find the length of FG. I know that FG is just FH plus HG. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to plug in 5. So I've got 5 times 5 plus 8 times 5 minus 15. And if I work that out, 5 times 5 is 25, 8 times 5 is 40, then my minus 15. Combine all my like terms, and I get my answer, which is 50. All right, which means that FH has to be 25, and HG must also be 25. All right, so that's everything you need to know about segments, midpoints, and bisectors. So I'm going to leave you with this try it problem. It says in this picture, LM is the bisector of IJ, and IJ, this whole length, is 72. Find the value of x. So I'm going to leave this as a problem for you to try.